What's up, everybody? It's IAmTheLionRider, and welcome back to Sandstone Valley. So this is going to be my Prehistoric Kingdom Alpha kind of Let's Play slash building park experience. And today, I'm basically picking up where we left off last time, where we worked on the Tarbosaurus habitat, the little Tarbosaurus Gorge. And in this episode, I wanted to do a herbivore habitat. So I'm going to be saving kind of like the one and only carnivore that we have, the T-Rex, for last. And I'm kind of separating that from the Tarbosaurus. So I wanted to do a herbivore habitat. So I thought, what would I want to do for this habitat? So for a while, I was like kind of debating, did I want to do Styracosaurus? Did I want to do Lambeosaurus? But what I ended up landing on was the Edmontosaurus. So the Edmontosaurus is a type of hadrosaur. And it's basically your very, very basic looking hadrosaur. It kind of looks very similar to like an iguanodon or other similar dinosaurs like that. And I just wanted to make kind of like a really nice looking habitat. Just something that was kind of like really organic looking, that was kind of like one with nature type of vibe. But I wanted it to kind of feel like no matter where you were looking at it, you had a really good view of the park. And just in general, a really good view of the habitat in general. And I sort of wanted to design it almost like an actual zoo habitat. So while you may have seen that the Tarbosaurus Gorge was very much a very fantasy inspired, crazy dinosaur habitat, and there wasn't a lot going on in it, I wanted to make sure that the Edmontosaurus had a little bit of elevation to it. Some greenery was a big part of it, which I should actually mention this because this is like a thing that you're going to be seeing. Even though I started out with greenery, I basically, washed out the entire habitat first by covering it in sand. So I basically wanted to go for a very, like I said, Rocky Mountain, Colorado vibe with this entire map, like semi-California, semi-Colorado, Nevada area. And so I wanted to make it so that there's a lot of these kind of really tall sandstone rocks surrounding the whole area, but then a lot of like sand and desert vibes going on. And so what I ended up doing is just basically coating the entire area in sand first and then kind of dabbing in the grass where I thought it was appropriate. So in this case, this habitat, since they are herbivores, I thought they do probably want to have a lot of greenery in their habitat. And so you see me just like periodically kind of being very, very conservative with the amount of grass that I had, but then over time you just see me basically like cover the entire thing once again in that level of grass. And then the next thing I wanted to do was make sure that I'm kind of framing the entire habitat with these big rocks formations. I don't even know if I want to say they're like realistic or not, but what I do sort of like about the Prehistoric Kingdom aesthetic is that the bigger and more fantastical you go with it, weirdly enough, the better the build seemed to look. So if you were making something like this crazy mountain formation in Planet Zoo, it would probably have been like the biggest habitat in your zoo by far. Like this would be your big weenie, your focal point type of thing. But since they're dinosaurs, since they're not around anymore, you can definitely go a lot more crazy and fantastical with your builds. Because dinosaurs don't exist, dinosaur parks don't exist, and a lot of the things like, giant foliage and giant rock formations and stuff also don't exist. So you can kind of like get away with just kind of going a bit crazier than you would with a normal zoo or something. And I've definitely taken advantage of that with this build in particular because I really like the idea that there's just these crazy, just tall mountain formations and unrealistic, giant buildings and stuff of that nature that kind of just make this park just something really, really cool. So a thing that I thought would be a cool idea, and you see me working on here, that I was trying to go for that realistic zoo vibe while kind of getting the proportions of a really comedically large habitat. I wanted to make a shelter for the Edmontosaurus. So what I did was I sort of based it off of like a traditional elephant house that you'd see in most zoos that have elephants or maybe even giraffes or rhinos. And usually these are just large sheds with big doors on them that kind of let you into the stable area where they are. And I didn't go crazy. I'm not going like a Bro Nation style, like, oh, we have to have a backstage area and stuff, just because we don't have enough pieces to like really get into the nitty gritty of stuff. I probably could have done whole backstage areas due to the fact that we have scaling, so I probably could have done stuff like shovels or something. But I was going for just very basic stable area, but I did want to give them some sort of shelter. So what I did was I basically built into the rock formations this kind of giant shed or house that the Edmontosaurus can go to sleep in at the end of the day. And what I ended up doing is just kind of using the wood and the metal and just basically framing out a basic thing. Now, you can see me here. I'm struggling a lot with the game's jankiness. So, selection of blueprints in this game is very, very finicky. Literally, maybe halfway through this build, I finally understood how to enter and exit out of blueprints. So, what I was just struggling with is I would just be clicking on blueprints, then I'd be like, why can't I select this? I can't. And it's because I was inside of another blueprint at the time. So due to this, I kept moving this entire building around and just knocking it out of orientation. Again, I'm still getting used to the controls myself. It's going to take a while, like kind of rewriting how I build, considering how I've been so accustomed to the Planet Zoo controls for so long now. But I'm definitely getting the hang of it. I've kind of gotten used to the whole it's pressing V instead of X, and we had a brand new patch out today, which fixed a lot of the kind of really crazy jankiness that was going on in the very first build of the alpha. And that is much appreciated because it actually it really helped a lot. Some of my rotation issues and stuff that I was having before seem to have been resolved, and building overall just seems a lot smoother. The only thing, like I said, that I still wish, gets a little bit tightened up is that scale tool. As you can see right there, it's just, I don't like the whole you have to stretch and stretch and stretch to do scale. I wish it was just one long scale thing that just was consistent, because the game is very touchy. I know it probably doesn't, show up very well on a time lapse, but the game is very, very touchy with some of the controls. So you can accidentally shrink an object if you're trying to grow it, or if you're trying to rotate it, it could, it'll rotate really fast. If you're trying to duplicate objects, it'll duplicate them really fast. So if you're someone who's used to Planet Zoo, you're almost used to like this sort of level of lag, I guess, when doing any of these commands. But in PK, it's just instant, so it is a bit jarring. But I guess now we can kind of talk about what I'm doing in the background. So I'm actually trying to add, like I said, a bit more foliage and greenery to this area. So to contrast it from the Tarbosaurus build, as an example, the Tarbosaurus build was very much a sand pit, like I was mentioning, and it was in a canyon. It didn't have a lot of really anything going on. It was just a couple of dead trees. There was a little bit of a water feature, which I actually expand on later in this video. But I wanted to make sure that this habitat felt a bit different. So I messed around with the terrain tools and stuff. I am still kind of getting used to the whole like placing down foliage that way. It is useful. It is very useful. I missed it from Zoo Tycoon 2. But sometimes getting the plants you want and some of the trees you want and stuff is a bit weird. So I usually still resort back to going to the modular pieces if I want things like trees in certain locations or types of grass, that sort of thing. So the next thing that I did, and this was sort of a little experiment I had. So if you remember from my last video, I was talking about the Hells Creek Formation, which is the area where many of the kind of staple Cretaceous dinosaurs were found, such as like T-Rex and Triceratops and Ankylosaurus, stuff like that. So those dinosaurs are very popular. And in Hells Creek, they basically have these giant rock formations like the ones that I'm building. But you would look for fossils depending on the rock layer that they're in. So you may have seen that I added a little bit of a lighter sandstone color, like almost like a whitish quartz type of rock in between the middle. And that was just to try to get that kind of layered rock effect that I was talking about earlier. So skipping ahead a little bit, we are now doing that kind of water feature expansion that I was talking about earlier. So unfortunately, the game does not have waterfalls in its current state. I'm almost positive they're gonna have waterfalls at this point. How can you not have a game like this without waterfalls? Everyone loves them. But what I am able to do is I was able to expand the river a little bit so that it almost looks like it would normally feed from this lake right here down into the gorge and into the Tarbosaurus Lake. And so the other thing is, I just wanted an excuse to build like a little bridge, essentially, just because I thought it would be kind of cool. You see me here. I'm trying to figure out what would a fence going through the water look like in a dinosaur park. So you see me here. Like I kind of settled on that for a little bit, but I definitely changed it later on with a much better idea. And you see me there at first. I was trying to use the fence tool to see if placing fences on modular pieces was possible. Unfortunately, it isn't. It doesn't seem to react to modular pieces. It would still go off the terrain. So it did try to still go with the terrain and like dip back into the water. So what I ended up doing is just going with modular pieces. So scaling is a huge, huge bonus of this game. So I can just take, in this case, like basically like a little wire fence or whatever, and just kind of stretch it so that it basically acted like almost like a gate or something that the water could pass through, but the dinosaurs couldn't. And I thought that looked really, really good. And I just really love the nice scenic view from this like kind of bridge. And so I loved it so much that I was like, you know what? I feel like people would want to hang out here. So again, using those kind of like the tools like scaling and some of the nice like modular sets and stuff, I was able to just basically like make almost like it was almost like a subway stop, and like just a nice little like train station style like area where you could just stop and just kind of admire the Edmontosaurus, and you just get like a nice little vibe going on, and I really enjoyed that aspect because the nature like surrounding the area of the trees and the water and stuff just looks so calming that I wanted to like just treat this like an area where you would want to stop and just hang out for a bit. And so I thought that was kind of a nice thing. I know Edmontosaurus probably aren't the biggest dinosaur that you would want to do this with, but looking at zoos that are in real life, as an example, the Bronx Zoo has an exhibit over by both the Nyala in their Africa section as well as the Sika deer over in their Asia section over by Tiger Mountain. And again, same kind of idea where they're just kind of resting points in a large zoo that you would be kind of rushing to get to the big ticket like animals like your lions and stuff. But so you might want to just take a break over by some of these ungulate exhibits and stuff. And so what are the equivalent of ungulates for dinosaurs? Probably your hadrosaurs, I'd say. Like hadrosaurs, maybe some ceratopsids. And so I was really, liking that idea. So you can also see me here. I'm trying to place down one of the buildings. I settled on just the normal bathroom, just because I thought we needed some actual buildings and kind of bigger things to kind of fill out some of these areas that, otherwise were pretty empty. So one of the things I settled on was, like I said, a bathroom, and then later on you see me adding a little bit of a restaurant off to the side. And past that, I'm just kind of wrapping up like the majority of the build. I'm just kind of doing little touch-up areas here and there. Just what needs more foliage, what needs more rock work, that sort of thing. And so in this case, like I needed a little bit of black on the bridge as an example, just to kind of like tighten it up, make it seem like it was a bit more stable. I'm not sure what these concrete pillars were supposed to be. I almost treated them like they're like modern art. Like, obviously, most people are going to be looking at the Edmontosaurus side, but I thought like, hey, if you had a couple of little things of statues or some foliage, you might want to look through the rocks or whatever to go see that like visitor center at the beginning or something, between the gorge and stuff. So I really like that idea as well. And essentially, past that, I was just kind of touching up some of the other areas, some of the surrounding rocks and stuff. Over here, I actually built a little shelter, like I said, took a lot of inspiration from elephant habitats. I feel like elephant habitats are going to be easily one of the most popular inspirations for Prehistoric Kingdom, just because elephants and giraffes are basically the closest animals that you could get for reference to dinosaurs. So I basically tried to make a pseudo elephant, you know, kind of canopy habitat, and essentially that is it. I just kind of mess with the terrain just a little bit more before heading over to the nursery to spawn in our Edmontosaurus. So a funny little thing about the Edmontosaurus, just because I want to say it before we get there, I spawned way too many in at first. I thought like, oh, well, that looks cool. That's a cool skin. That's a cool skin. Quickly realized, wow, no, I was going crazy with the amount of Edmontosaurus I was putting into this habitat. So at first I think I spawned in like 7 or 8. I think I settle with only using 4 in the end, and I think that was definitely for the best. Past that, I'm adding a couple of little like bits of greenery to some of the cliff sides, both in this habitat as well as in the Tarbosaurus area. And then, like I said, placing down that little cafe at the end just to kind of get some more buildings in place. But here you go. You can see me spawning in all the Edmontosaurus. I spawned in way too many. But I still love how you drop in the dinosaurs. It's so satisfying coming from Planet Zoo. But yeah, you can see me here. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of dinosaurs for this little area. So I quickly, you know, kind of remove them. But past that, thank you guys for watching. So I hope you guys have been enjoying Sandstone Valley, and I will see you guys in the next video. So peace.